The High Priestess. Rita thought to herself, I guess I needed the enforced rest. I knew it wasn't going to be for long, but at least I could get a break from work. So maybe mangling my foot in my bike wasn't so bad after all. I mean, it is painful, but at least I get a break. I don't know what to do with my time off though. No cycling, but you know what? Maybe it's my time to look for a new partner. I've been alone for so long now that I've almost forgotten what it's like. It's not that I don't like being single, I do like my own company. I mean, cycling for me has been wonderful, it's like an escape. I love to feel the breeze in my hair. I love to be out on the open roads. I love the adrenaline rush. I love everything about cycling, but I won't be able to do that for a while. So maybe it is time to kick back and find someone to share new experiences with. So I went on an online dating app and made my profile. I typed, Rita is a dedicated hard worker who loves the outdoors and cycling. I've been sidelined for a bit with a broken foot, which has given me some unexpected downtime to reflect and recharge. Despite the temporary setback, I am optimistic and ready to meet someone special to share the beauty of nature and life's adventures. When I'm not navigating the trails or enjoying a scenic bike ride, you'll find me dreaming up my next outdoor adventure or catching up on some much-needed rest. I value hard work, honesty, and a good laugh. If you appreciate a mix of determination and downtime, we might just get along. Not long after I posted, I started chatting to some different people on there and looked through all their profiles. I did write to a few, but let's face it, a lot of them are jerks on some of the sites. Some of them only wanted to talk about sex or money, but then I found Sam. As I chatted with him, he didn't sound like all the rest. He seemed genuine. He likes the outdoors. He wasn't into cycling, but he liked hiking and fishing and things like that, so I started chatting with him more. After a while, we decided to meet up just for coffee at a cafe, so I met him. Sam had short, dark brown hair that was neatly styled and slicked back, giving him a polished professional appearance. His eyes were a piercing blue, captivating and intense. They drew me in and made me feel at ease. He had a charming smile and was clean-shaven with high cheekbones, giving him a striking appearance that I found attractive, and he seemed lovely. The weirdest thing he said was that he had a fascination for ladies' shoes and would I go to the shoe shop with him and try on some shoes. It did seem a bit odd, but you know I had heard about people with foot fetishes before, and I think my feet are pretty cute, only small a size 5, and I keep my toenails trimmed and painted, so you know I wasn't that worried about showing him my feet. There weren't any shoe shops where we were, but there was a retail store, so we went there. Sam went around looking at all these different shoes. He picked out shoes he thought he'd like me to try on. They were all elegant going out type shoes, and he was saying that on our next date, we could go somewhere out for dinner. So we spent a few hours just trying on shoes, and he would make me stand up and walk around in them. A bit tricky when I could only try one on, but still, it did feel pretty cute. It was interesting, and I did enjoy his company. After that, I went home. He didn't actually buy me any shoes. We just spoke about them. He seemed to know a lot about women's shoes, making sure they fit right, checking they didn't pinch, stuff like that. So we left. After that, I kept talking to him on Messenger and through the dating site. He was a bit concerned that I had hurt one of my feet. He kept asking questions about what had happened and when it might be healed, and for some reason that did feel unnerving, but I thought he was genuinely concerned about my foot. It was weird. He seemed quite pleased that I had hurt my foot. Maybe it was me feeling a bit paranoid about meeting a new person probably, so we went out for dinner next time, and that was okay. I still had my crutch, so it was impossible to wear any high-heeled shoes. Heeled shoes didn't fit my style or who I was, so I wore my flats instead. I mean, the whole idea of heels did appeal to me. They do look nice. It had been years since I'd worn any though, and I didn't even know if I could walk in them, to be honest. But anyhow, we had a nice meal and we chatted. I didn't ask him what he did for work, but he has the air of being in finance. I guess he worked in a bank. Maybe he was an accountant. It didn't really matter. I didn't want to delve into his finances too much. We had only been communicating for a short while, and I didn't want him to think I was a gold digger or something like that. Sam still kept asking about my foot. I thought he was just concerned. The next time he asked me over to his house for dinner, so I went. It was a lovely house, but I had these bizarre, weird vibes as soon as I arrived, like there was something off. It was just something that unnerved me. I had no idea what it was specifically. There was something that wasn't right. But anyway, we had a nice meal, and I decided not to stay. I felt it was too early in the relationship to stay the night, so I just went home. We still kept chatting, and our relationship started to be more relaxed. He was nice. He was interested in what I had to say and everything like that. So, the next time we went on a picnic, Sam picked somewhere we wouldn't have to walk too far because my foot was still painful, which he kept asking about. He wanted to have a look, so I took off my bandage and revealed my foot. I'd had 8 stitches up the front of it. It was still very bruised and sore, and he looked horrified at what he had seen, but I reassured him that it was okay. It had been healing well. I thought they had done a good job with the stitches, so I put the dressing back on, and he helped me bandage it back up. I didn't need help, but he wanted to, and he massaged my other foot very carefully. He seemed very caring. Unbeknownst to Rita, Sam had a very different life. Sam had been brought up with a troubled childhood. His father owned a piggery, and his father was not a very nice man, to say the least. From a very young age, he'd take Sam out to the piggery factory, where he would make it Sam's job to cut off the pigs' trotters and hang them to dry. Sam was initially deeply troubled by everything that occurred at the piggery, so he began to like the pigs' trotters in an attempt to forget about it or to make things feel a little more normal. One day he took one of the pig trotters, placed it in a shoe, and stuffed it with newspaper. I guess he thought it made it look more human. This enthralled him, as did the pigs' trotters. He would frequently stuff one into his jumper while working there and bring it home to put into a shoe. Then one day his mum took him to the OP shop, and he saw a rack of shoes. There were beautiful shoes with high heels and diamantes all over them. So when no one was looking, he grabbed a pair of shoes and put them in his school backpack. People back then weren't as suspicious of children with backpacks, so he felt safe to do so. When he got home, he took out his shoes and pig trotters, made them look all fancy, and put them under his bed. Every night, he would take out his elegant shoes and look at them, but eventually, the smell was terrible, the smell of rotting flesh, which he hated, so he'd always find himself bringing another home to replace it. Anyway, years flew past, and Sam's fascination changed to feet, particularly female feet. His tortured, twisted childhood remained with him. Then one day he was in the car with his mum, and they were in a horrific car accident. While traveling on a country road, a kangaroo suddenly darted into the car's path. It all happened in a flash, too fast for her to brake in time, so this mangled kangaroo came flying through her window, and the car flipped and rolled. Sam had been knocked unconscious but soon regained his senses. He only had a few scratches and bruises on him. He looked over at his mother. He already could tell she had died in the accident. Her ankle had snapped. He could see the crushed bones and sinew beneath the broken flesh, but instead of being frightened, his mind seemed quite clear. He felt a sense of relief. His mother had been the one who agreed to send him down to the piggery with his father, even though she knew what his father had him doing. She didn't seem bothered. It was all about the money. She didn't seem to care about Sam's feelings, even though he had tried to tell her. He remembered that in her handbag she kept a manicure kit, so he fumbled around in her bag till he found it. Sam took out the little scissors and a nail file and began to cut the flesh and sinew from her foot. It wasn't an easy process. There should have been a moment when he felt sick or repulsed by something, some response, but to him there was some reason, some need, to get this foot off. He even unscrewed the top of the gear shift and hit her foot repeatedly to snap the bone loose, then used the nail file to remove the foot. He managed to wrap it in his jumper and place it in his backpack after several hours. The day turned to night, and he slept a while in the car until eventually a car came past. The next thing he remembered was the lights and sirens going off and the police coming. The fact that police couldn't locate his mother's foot baffled them. But since the car had rolled over into a ditch and they weren't looking for anything sinister, I guess they thought some animal had taken it since we had been there for about 6 hours before their arrival. Sam was taken to the hospital for minor cuts and bruises, but he was released the next day. They did give him some trauma counseling, not realizing that in his mind he wasn't traumatized at all. When Sam got home, he went to his mother's room and found some nice red nail polish and a pair of her best shoes. He cleansed the foot carefully, painted the toenails, and arranged the foot in the shoe. He asked his dad to buy him some modeling clay, and his dad thought it would be good for him to have a hobby, so he bought him some air-dry clay. At night, Sam would take the clay and place it over the top of the foot, molding it down to cover all the blood and sinew. He loved that foot. He kept it for years under his bed. He found that adding some scented wax candles under his bed would camouflage the smell. The place always smelt of pigs anyway. As Sam grew up and got his place, his foot fetish never died. It was always there at the back of his mind. His mother's foot was now mummified, but he still kept it with him. He had moved far away from his dad and the piggery. He started to date girls online. He wasn't interested in them at school. His father had kept him too busy. When Sam first met Julia, she was a very young adolescent girl, and they immediately fell in love. This was his first conquest. At first, Sam didn't even know what would happen. They had gone to the beach swimming and playing in the sea, and then Sam was drying her feet. She had beautiful feet with red nail polish, and for some reason, this triggered something in Sam's mind. He remembered the shoe under his bed, and he just felt this primal instinct, this need. He needed to have these feet as if he were in a daze, as if he had become a different person. He asked Julia to walk further down the beach along to the rocks, and then he was messing around flicking her with a towel until it landed around her neck, and he knew this was the moment. He choked the life out of Julia. He had always kept a boot knife in his backpack. He remembered how when they first got to the beach, he had used it to cut the cheese to put on crackers. It had been a beautiful day. But that was Sam's thinking, not his alter ego. So he took out his knife and started on Julia's ankles, and then he found that if he cut a bit higher on the ankle, it was easier. He found a rock to smash the bone a little. The whole process was easier than he thought it would be, so he took off her feet, wrapped them in his towel, put them in his backpack, and just left Julia there. She had been very naive. Sam had set up a different address, and he had acquired an American IP address to correspond. Maybe in the back of his mind, he knew he didn't want to be discovered. There would be no real link to him. Sam realized how easy it had all been. He measured Julia's feet, went into a shoe shop and asked the assistant to help buy some shoes for his new girlfriend. He got home and put her feet into the footwear, modeling the clay around the stump. But this time he wanted to keep her feet in pristine condition. He put them in the freezer, but he longed to look at them. He longed to see them on display, so he went on to the marketplace and looked for a freezer display unit. He found one at a reasonable price. He had started a new job at a bank which enabled him to afford the freezer. He got it home and cleaned it up, painted the sides, and made it into a beautiful display cabinet. He took out Julia's feet and put them on display. But where could he put such a display? He wanted the feet somewhere he could admire, but he wanted them to be his alone, not for others to see. So in his house he went about and built a false wall in one of his rooms with a door. It was just like a built-in walk-in wardrobe. Somewhere he could put his desk, computer, and display freezer. He had Julia's feet in the freezer marked with her name, and he would go on the computer on dating apps. He would go on alternative dating sites and tell the ladies that he had a foot fetish. So he went on multiple dates and saw lots of feet that he would caress. Some of them opened his mind to a whole new world sexually. He found it amazing if they would put their big toe and their second toe around his cock and slide them up and down. As he got older, he found that feet were somewhat of a sexual thing as well, but not all feet are the same, and he found it difficult to find the exact foot he wanted. He seemed to want the feet that reminded him of his mother's first foot, his mummified glory. So girls came and went till eventually he found someone with a perfect fit, perfect foot, and perfect shoe size, and she again met her demise, and her feet landed in the display freezer. His attacks were varied and random, all very different. Some he would simply euthanize, others weren't so lucky as sometimes things went wrong, but he always managed to get out unscathed. Sam had become adept at getting rid of these bodies. He had bought a shack down by the river. His first idea came to him when he was putting his yabby nets out. He had seen pig trotters in the butchers and had bought one to put in his net to catch yabbies. When he pulled the net out, the yabbies were all over the pig trotter. He found this quite amusing. He had lots of yabbies for his supper that night, and then the thought came to him that if they were that good at picking the flesh, it would be a perfect way of disposing of bodies. He didn't want to ever attract attention to himself. The next woman that fell to his infatuation with feet, he took back to his shack. He hadn't killed her there, but he took her body back there, rolled her up in netting, took his rowing boat out to the middle of the river, and threw her body in, weighed down with rocks. It felt comforting to know that she was down there in the cool depths of the river, and he could have the bodies nearby. By the time he met his new online person, he was beginning to feel like he could settle down, and Rita seemed like the perfect person. Her feet would always be scarred, not the sort of foot to grace his display cabinet. So, he felt he had finally found someone to settle down with. They kept on seeing each other. Rita arrived at my door for her reading. She said a friend had given her one of my business cards. She told me that it had been a rough year due to the bike accident that scarred her foot, that she was now dating a new man, and that everything seemed cruisy, so I welcomed her and sat down for her reading. I had taken to giving clients a cup of herbal tea. It just seemed relaxing. It relaxed both them and me, so she shuffled the cards and I cut the deck for the reading. It did come up that she had a troubled past and a difficult year. The present was puzzling. I asked her if she had a secret or knew anyone who did, as the High Priestess had been revealed. She said she wasn't sure. She didn't have any secrets herself, but the new man she had started dating did seem secretive, especially about one part of his house. Her future card revealed that she should be wary, that she could find herself in a dangerous situation. I asked if she would like to take one of the special cards from the antique deck, and once again the High Priestess was revealed. Esme explained that often when this card appeared, it meant she would gently nudge you in the direction of discomfort. Rita took a picture on her phone for future reference. I had a very uneasy feeling about this reading. How could I explain to her that this was a dangerous situation? So I just explained that she should be wary of her surroundings. She should be on guard for anything unusual, and I left it at that. She thanked me and paid me for the reading. Remember to like, subscribe, and share to others, so you don't miss an episode.